Okay, hi, my students. I might have to use 2 videos for this, and it's facts about trig. So I'm starting off with trig, this a little bit different, by giving you facts that you have to memorize. In fact, I want you to make note cards, and if you have note cards with all the facts I'm covering in this video, and the next if I have 2, I will give you 5 extra credit points on Monday if we have school on Monday, if we're in school. So we're dealing with trigonometry. The foundation of trig is a right triangle. You know it's a right triangle when it has a little box, and that means that angle is 90 degrees, which is called a right angle. Now, you go A, B, C, capital letters to name the angles. Across from the angle is lowercase letters representing the name of the side. Now, opposite the right angle is a side that's called the hypotenuse. Now, let's see. The other 2 sides are called legs. You can call it leg 1 and leg 2. Whichever one you want to call it, I don't care. Technically, I think this one's 1 and this is 2, but I don't care. They're both called legs. Now, what they found out about triangles, a right triangle, is no matter how big it is or how small, if it's the same measure of angles, A is the same, B is the same, and C is the same, it's right, that the sides will always have the same ratio or same fraction. So they made up 6 names to take care of the 6 fractions. This over this, 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 this over this. And they base it on the angle so you know what you're going from. So if I go from angle B, this would be the opposite side because it's across from it. This is the adjacent because it touches B. And this is always the hypotenuse. Now, if I'm going from A, this would be the adjacent side. This would be the opposite because it's across. So the side that touches that is not the hypotenuse is adjacent. Side opposite is across from it, doesn't touch it. So the sign of an angle, now they usually use a Greek letter if you don't have a specific angle at the moment. Sine, which is abbreviated S-I-N, but don't worry, we can pray the sin away, is opposite over hypotenuse. Then the reciprocal of sine is cosecant. Oops, let me put that up there. Which is abbreviated CSC. That would be the reciprocal, which is hypotenuse, over opposite. So on a note card, you should say sine on one side, opposite over hypotenuse on the other. You need to get that down by heart. Have your parents test you. Then cosecant, hypotenuse over opposite. And another note card that says sine is the reciprocal of what? And on the other side, cosecant. Then we have cosine. And it's abbreviated COS. Oops, you always got to put an angle measure there, or it doesn't make sense. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So no card, cosine one side, adjacent over hypotenuse on the other. Then the reciprocal of cosine is secant, which is abbreviated SEC. And that is, got to have an angle measure, is the reciprocal, so it's hypotenuse. I'm going to start abbreviating over adjacent. Then we have tangent. Now you use the 3 letters. You don't write it all out. But tangent is T-A-N. And that's what you use. Tangent's opposite over adjacent. And the reciprocal, which this one actually makes sense of all of them, is cotangent is the reciprocal. Reciprocal. And it's C-O-T. Now, you don't put the parentheses in. I just did that. I don't know why, actually. So that'd be adjacent over opposite. So if I said, what is the sine of A? You would go to angle A and say sine is opposite, which is A, over hypotenuse, which is C. So if I said, what's the cosine of A? You would go, oh, cosine's adjacent. Adjacent is the side touching it, over hypotenuse, which is C. Then tangent of A would be opposite A over adjacent B. Side touching, side opposite. What did I say? Oh, A over B. About fell asleep there. So if I said, what's the secant of B? Well, you could find cosine of B and take the reciprocal if you think that's easier. Or you could say secant is hypotenuse, C, over adjacent A. Now, if you don't have these memorized, and I say, okay, what's a cosine A? You're like, I don't know. And then you're going to be lost. Now, someone came up with a long time ago of a little phrase to help you memorize 3 of the trig functions. Then you just remember what is the reciprocal. And that is SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So if you want to use that to help you memorize, go ahead. I don't like it because it makes me remember my grandmother washing her feet, and she had the gnarliest toes. They like twisted around. Ew! Now see what you made me memorize. Now, when you're doing trig, there's 3 things you have to know. 1, the sum of the interior angles in a triangle, interior means inside, is 180 degrees. So this plus this plus this has to be 180. Doesn't really matter what triangle you have, but any triangle, it's 180. So if I know this one and this one, I can find this by subtracting these 2 from 180. Also, if this is 90, that means these 2 add up to 90, and that's got a name for it. It's called complementary. This is another fact you should have on a note card. That some of the angles add up to 180. So on one side, some of the angles of a triangle, the other side 180. 2, we've already done, and that's the Pythagorean Theorem. Mercy. There we go. Which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if I have a right triangle and I know 2 of the sides, I can always find the 3rd. Then the last thing, I kind of wrote this messy, is trig. So you can use the 6 trig functions. And I'm going to show you that today, this lesson. And then I'll make a video on that probably tomorrow. And then Friday we'll go over it. Don't forget, Thursday is a test on logs. But I'm going to need 2 videos for all the facts and trig we're going to use. So this is video 1. Let me get video 2 going.